Hey guys, it's Elena, and today for our tutorial we're going to do something similar to this with some flowers on a creamy background. And we're going to be using my Painterly brush set, which is a paid brush set, and the link for this is down in the description. If you don't have this brush set, you can try using any oil or acrylic brushes that you do have, or you can use the free Procreate brushes as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with a canvas that is 20 by 16 inches and 300 dpi. And I'm going to start out with having a canvas layer. So I've got black selected, and I'm going to choose from my canvas textures. This one is called Cotton Duck Canvas, and it's the large one. And I'm going to choose large because this piece is 20 by 16 inches, so it's a large piece. It's not made for the web, it's made for print. So I'm going to go ahead and add my canvas here. And then I will change the blend mode to multiply. And then I'll go ahead and make a new layer and put that below, and this will be for my painting. And for a reference image for this painting, we're going to use an image from Unsplash, and I have the app right here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it beside my canvas. And we're going to go ahead and use this image. And the reason that I use images from Unsplash rather than Pinterest is because on Pinterest you don't really know what the copyright status is, but it's most likely that the images there will be copyrighted. So if you want to use a reference photo that you can paint make a painting from that reference photo and then sell the print of the image, then you can use photos from Unsplash because they are free for commercial use. And you just don't really know, if you're just Googling images, you don't really know what you're going to get copyright wise. So, and also if you have the app, I do recommend that you get the app, the Unsplash app, because you can actually drag images right into Procreate from it. So we're going to make a color palette based on this image. So I'm going to take the image and just drag it to my palettes and let it go. And then it will download into Procreate and give us these colors. And now this is set as my default. So I'm going to go back over to the disk, and here we have the colors right here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a reference layer as well by going to the gear icon, canvas, reference. And down here you can reference your own canvas, you can reference an image or your face. And we're going to reference an image, and instead of having to save it and then import it, we're just going to drag it straight in like this. So there we go. So now we can close that, and now we have the whole canvas open instead of having to have something constantly referencing over there. So and actually, you know what, I think I'm going to take this canvas layer that I've made and just make it a little bit lighter with the opacity down to about 70. Okay, so back to the painting layer. So first off, we're going to do the background, and in this image it's kind of warped a little bit right now because of the reference layer, but in the background there is an actual canvas. And I've decided that I want to use my Impressionist brushes from the Painterly set, which are the very top, these first 5. I'm going to go ahead and use these Impressionist brushes to just lay down a texture in the background. And you could just go through with individual brush strokes, making a cool sort of textured background. But honestly, that just takes too long for me. I'm a little bit impatient and my wrist starts to hurt with that sort of thing. So if you want to do the quick and easy way, just choose these Impressionist brushes, and then we can get the smudge tool and sort of move it around, knead the colors around in a way that we like. So I'm going to go ahead and start with these light colors that clearly came from this canvas. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, and the Impressionist brushes use both the primary and the secondary color. So I'm going to select the secondary, and then it was already selected, but I'm going to have this other off-white in here as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and use my Master Impressionist in a fairly large size, and I'm just gonna start laying down some color. And you'll notice that when I put my pen to the side, then that's when the secondary color comes out. So I'm just gonna be going like this as I draw. Okay, so I just got a very basic texture put in here, and I'm gonna select a slightly darker color and just do it again a little bit to add a bit more color. Okay, so now I'm going to my Impressionist Multistroke number 2. And for my primary color, I'm gonna have a bit of a darker peachy color. And then I'm just gonna keep this off-white as the secondary color. And I've got it really small over here, and I'm just gonna add a few little accents around here. And it may look very splotchy at first, and you'll see what I'm gonna go ahead and smudge it all together. So basically the point of what I'm doing right now is just that I want to have several different colors on the canvas so that I can smear it all together and it won't just be one big blob. So I'll just go ahead and add some little accents with this. And I'm just going to do the same thing with more of a peachy color. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this white color, this off-white color, and then I'm going to scroll down to my gesso brushes, and I'll use the flat gesso. Make sure that opacity is all the way up. And I'm going to start adding a few strokes of off-white to this. Now I'm going to go ahead and add just a couple of really big strokes of just plain white. Okay, so now I will take the same brush, opacity all the way up, the flat gesso with the smudge tool. And if you're not familiar with the smudge tool, all you do is you select a brush just like you do with the brush tool, but instead of putting anything onto the canvas, it just moves it around. So I'm going to select that one, and then I'm just going to knead the colors around a little bit more, and then we'll have our background all ready. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with this background. I like how it's got strokes going in one direction, but you still have a little bit of this peeking through. A little bit of opposite brush strokes peeking through. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep that as my background, and then I'm going to add these flowers on top. So I will go ahead and add a new layer above the background. And I think that because I want the flowers to really stand out, I'm actually going to put it on top of the canvas layer as well. And so the canvas layer is here, and then the background is here, and then the flowers will be on the very top of all of that, and we'll just see how that ends up looking and if we like that. So to start off with the flowers, I'm just gonna have a look at my reference photo and choose a green in order to start making the stems and the buds. And once I've got my green chosen, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the the thick round acrylic brush stroke. And I'm gonna make sure the opacity is all the way up on that. And I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in these stems just with some squiggly lines, all in one color to begin with. And you'll notice with this, if you're working with my brushes, you'll notice with most of the brushes, if you're doing one stroke and then another stroke, the color is slightly different, and that's just in order to make the strokes more differentiated from each other, just like real paint strokes would look. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting in the stems and the buds. So now that I've put in my stems and my buds, I've kind of noticed that in this picture, you can see that the light seems to be on this side of the canvas. So I'm gonna go ahead and shade the other side a little bit using the same brush and the same color, just by adding more strokes on that side. You may have noticed that in a situation like this, where I haven't done the shading as I do the stems, I've kind of had to go over top of, for instance, right here, this was underneath and this other one was over top, and I've done the shading over top, so it's sort of sandwiched in there. But actually what you can do with these brushes, they're very forgiving, so you can just sort of erase it by adding more strokes as you go. I'm also not really shading the parts, like if this is pointing in this direction, I'm not really going to shade that. I'm only going to shade the parts that are over on this side. So I'm happy enough with that painting of the stems and the buds, and now I'm going to go ahead and start in on the flowers. So I've noticed that there's mostly orange and yellow and white and just a little bit of red in here. So I'm just going to go through and do each color one at a time. And I will use the same technique that I did with the buds, where I'm just adding a couple of strokes on top of each other. It's very loose. It doesn't have to be precise. In fact, I can't really do precise flowers. All I can do is loose. So that's what we're doing. And I will use the same technique with the shading, where I just use the same brush and add lots of little strokes over on the side where the shadow is. I'm doing some of the shading on the flowers along the strokes on the inside as well, just to make it look like there are individual petals. As I'm doing this, I'm just trying to keep in mind at all times where the light source is coming from. So I always know that it's coming from this side of the image, and I'm just trying to keep that in mind as I'm adding a little bit of more strokes and darker areas to the flowers. And these brushes are such that the more that you layer them, the darker that they get. So you don't have to switch colors or brushes. You can just keep layering brush strokes on top of each other, and then it does get darker. Sometimes if it starts to have a really stark contrast between the shadow and the non-shadow, you can just add another stroke on top and it will still keep some of that shadowing in there, but it will start to be a little bit more like one stroke. So I'm not completely happy with the shading on the lighter flowers. Like these ones, it looks great, but I'm just gonna add just a little bit more shading in a darker color on some of these lighter flowers. If I feel like it's a really light flower, I'm just gonna take the opacity down a tiny bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this white color from the palette and I'm gonna add just a little bit of these sort of inner bits of the flower with the same brush, just very small, and opacity all the way up. So I'm fairly happy with how this looks, even though it looks nothing like that pretty much. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn that off. I don't feel like I need that anymore. And I've realized as I've been shading the flowers that actually the background is not shaded like it was in the reference photo actually. So I'm gonna add another layer on top of the background. And I'm gonna choose the solid black. I'm gonna go down to my airbrushing. These are just the standard brushes that come with Procreate, and choose soft brush and put it all the way up. And then I'm just gonna add a bit of shadow. I'm going to change this to multiply this layer, and I'm gonna take the opacity quite far down so that it's just adding a bit of darkness to that side of the. I'm actually going to make it a bit bigger by using the arrow up there and then just enlarging it a little bit. There we go. Okay, and somehow my layers got mixed up, so the flowers are actually below the canvas layer. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And I hope that this was helpful and gave you some kind of inspiration. I'm not an expert in flowers, so I'm learning as I go along. And yeah, I just hope that you like it, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.